Imagine More. We missed you guys, and it's been 2 weeks, and we're looking forward to a great show. As you can see, we're very excited. The campaign's coming near. We're at less than 2 weeks, right? We brought Zach on, our expert, to talk about what's going on, what he's been doing at that, getting ready to gear up, and air quotes, and getting ready to gear up for the campaign. He's working tirelessly for the Paris and Walls campaign, and I'm looking forward for him to chime in a little bit what he's doing and what he sees on the ground um, in that area. And we got Seth back with some illumination lights.
Oh
So
yeah,
gives you
I
guys
got a new mic. Gives you something to look at.
yeah,
Very pretty.
yeah. And I'm here and I'm getting ready to go to watch the Golden State Warriors. As you can see, Golden State, it's opening night for basketball. I don't know if you guys checked out the podcast. There's a podcast called Younger, I think Three Men and Young. It's like three young men, a young man and three. I gotta find the word, the actual
Yeah.
name. But Barack Obama was on there, and it was pretty cool because he gave his basketball take and his perspective and on everything, and then he was able to tie it back to the election. I know. Before we go in there, I just want everybody to introduce himself. How you been, Zach?
Been pretty good. Staying busy. They got us working, every day of the week, which is to be expected. We're like 13 days away from the election. I do just want to say though, since I am employed by the Democratic Party of Wisconsin and the Harris Walls campaign, everything I say is just me from a personal capacity. So don't. Yeah, I don't know. Not a representation of the campaign. Sorry.
I just said not representative of the campaign.
Yeah, exactly. No, nothing I say. But yeah, doing great. Excited.
I mean, as a lawyer, I appreciate the disclaimer. That is awesome. The disclaimer there. Seth, how you been?
I've been pretty good. I just been working as well. I don't work for the Harris Walls campaign, unfortunately, because there's not much campaigning to do in California. I'm pretty confident. I did fill out my ballot today, so fingers crossed that Trump doesn't win the state. Sheesh. We'll see, man. Maybe RFK wins, and he was on the ballot still, so we'll see.
Okay.
I think it listed him under the Independent Party or some shit like that. Some, whoever claimed him. I know he's listed as a different party in like every state. So some of them say independent, some of them say reform, some of them say I don't know. So
I mean, here.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think as you would save California, I think me and Zach are really in the battleground states. Well,
yeah.
Zach's in the battleground state. I'm not.
You're in the vicinity.
I'm in the battleground state.
He's in the battleground state. I'm in the great state of Florida, where we hope that weed gets it done. Because if we have a lot of people come out for the marijuana amendment, the Amendment 3,
and abortion rights, right?
Yeah, Amendment 4 for abortion, we should have a good turnout and reduce that margin. Trump's right now. I think the latest polls have him up 6 points here. But I mean, I think amendments help because Florida's very. I always tell people Florida's very purple. It's just state. When it comes to state elections, we vote Republican, and that's why we have a Republican legislature. But for the most part, general elections, we're very Democratic. Well, not very Democratic, but we have more Democrats.
In the cities. The cities are obviously just like the rest of the country. It's a rural-urban divide, much more than a state-by-state basis.
So I am looking forward to us proving people wrong that Florida is not a lost state. I wish I could do more of this campaign cycle. I'm not gonna lie, but it's just with my law firm and work schedule, I'm just like I'm becoming that supporter from the far. It was like I'm just gonna donate because I don't have the time. But I hope next election cycle that it can change and I can be more active. Because I like going out, giving speeches, walking, talking. It's just, this is a little bit tough time to do it, but we're still getting the message out. We're still, getting our supporters out, which is great. I mean, I know we had a lot of successes recently on Twitter, by standing up to fascism, and that's our theme today, guys. If you want to know the theme of the show, it's fascism, and we're gonna go back to it um, a lot on this show. And we stood up to Elon and his bots. Well, Seth really stood up, and we said that he can't censor us anymore, and like the federal court here in Florida, who turned Ron DeSantis. Did you guys hear about this? So we had this
No,
Amendment
go
Four
on.
thing. Yeah, so we had this Amendment Four in Florida. Essentially, it was this commercial about this lady. She was saying that under the new abortion law here in Florida, she was diagnosed with some kind of disease, and obviously she had to make a hard decision to get an abortion. But
Yeah,
if she didn't have under the new law, she couldn't do that, and she would have died. And she would have died.
yeah,
And it was such an effective ad. It was like very on point. It was so effective. It was, driving up support for it. So the Ron DeSantis, our governor here, he decided that he was going to use his underlings and try to get the video banned from being aired on TV. So he kind of sent out a
banning,
letter. Hmm?
I said banning political ads. He doesn't get
Yeah,
more overt.
yeah. So he was like banning them, and then so we the Democrats, what we did was we ended up filing a lawsuit, and it's like, hey, he's threatening all these TV stations, to some, a lot of people don't know this, but some TV stations are funded by public money. You
Yeah,
ever seen how your TV bill is really high? A lot of that is taxes that goes
mm,
to the TV programming. So he was threatening their funding and stuff like that, and then they sued him in federal court. And it's funny, the federal court judge said, just because you guys don't realize why I'm saying no, that you guys can't ban this ad, I'm just gonna say it plain and stupid. It's called the First Amendment.
yeah,
You idiots. And that's what he said. And yeah, I just thought that was cool. I guess the little lawyer in me, like the fact that judge just kind of was like, this is like fundamental, bro. Like, we can't tell TVs they have to ban certain ads. It's like, there's like the theme, like I said, of the day is fascism, and that's one example of it. And and Elon Musk is in the same boat too with this whole trying to control the algorithm here on Twitter.
yeah,
Um, for the people who are on Twitter, he's doing the same thing. Which he's about to get in trouble with the federal election commission.
yeah.
So, you guys heard
He's
about
been
that
doing
story?
well. Depends on which one, because he's been doing a multitude of like election interference in different ways.
Yeah.
Some legal, some are just like slimy, and it's just so
You know,
ironic that they're like his pledge. It's like he's giving $1 million through his super PAC or whatever to a person every day or whatever. If they pledge to the First Amendment and the Second Amendment, it's like you're the most anti First Amendment guy in the fucking country, because you're
yeah,
controlling like you're spreading misinformation and censoring action like information. And like Trump is, oh, this MSNBC or whatever, this CBS channel or something, we need to take them down, when they say something he doesn't like. When Bill Maher makes a joke about him, he sues Bill Maher. When it's like, this guy, there's no evidence that he is a First Amendment supporter or that he, is a part of his values in any way whatsoever. All they do is project onto Democrats what they are doing. And it's so apparent. Elon bought Twitter because he
hmm
wanted to be politically neutral. And what does he do? Like, turn up the non-neutrality, like 25-50% is just, it's like so overt and extreme now that like nobody can miss how political it's become to like people who are not interested.
yeah. What you thoughts about it, Zach?
Yeah, I think before Elon bought it, there used to be like this pretty cool, wholesome, online public town square, and
Yeah.
now it's just full of like Nazis and porn ads, which is, I mean, if you're a Nazi porn addict, I guess is good for you, but if you're not, not. Yeah, no, I don't, not a big fan of Elon Musk, but I think he's just trying to grift his way into some sort of relevancy in political power, because I mean, what he started off doing, like electric cars, and was all about, you know, like green energy and shit like that. Now he's sort of like shifted his tone because he's getting big oil money and is donating like billions of dollars to Trump's campaign, or millions, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this. I mean, the campaigns is it's getting crazy. I mean, and it's to be expected. Every time it gets close, you know, everyone's getting desperate. Everyone's saying whatever they gotta say. Um, you know, there was something that you guys can chime in on. I was concerned about this week that I was just reading. Um, Lately, this, you know, and Zach, I know you might not chime in as hard as Seth might on this one, but I saw that there was some polling that showed some weakening for Vice President Harris in the battleground states with young voters, young male voters to be particular,
Oh
and
yeah,
that
definitely
kind
male
of
vote.
second.
Oh, I just said definitely with the young male voters, because it's actually like, it's not young voters. If you consider women who are voting for Trump, at like, young women are voting for Trump like 63% versus whatever. It's such a
Wait,
vast
for Trump?
divide. What was that?
I mean, for Trump or for Camilla?
For Harris, of course, young
Yeah, yeah,
women.
okay, okay.
Yeah. So like, it's not just young people. Young men are super for Trump. Young women are super for Harris. I mean, like, it's always been women generally vote more Democratic, but the divide is becoming even more vast, which is why I feel like conversations like this are pretty important, because like 3 younger men voting for Harris, it's kind of like a outsized demographic or whatever like that. So I think it's pretty important. I don't know that I'm super concerned as I was a week or two ago about Trump's odds, because like, it's been shown, you know, that Harris's campaign has been saving the juice for the very last 2 weeks, because all of a sudden there's not only all the Hitler stuff that's been coming
Yeah.
out, but I also now seen like specifically women that were
What's
connected
the
to
Hitler?
Epstein. Well, I'll get into that in a second, absolutely. But
Okay.
also, like, now there's reports about which we already knew, but women talking specifically about their stories with Trump and Epstein. Like, they're releasing this as
Oh,
if it's news, but like, we knew. But you know, Democrats have been holding it to the last 2 weeks because they're smart, and they know
yeah.
that like, if they did it a month before the election, eventually by the end of the month, people would forget and not really care, because you know, we've had enough super controversial things about Trump that have completely bounced off of him after 3 days or whatever. So it's smart that they're saving us for the last stretch, the final stretch. But yeah, I think a lot of people have heard, and if you have not heard what Trump had said, which was something he said while in office, General John Kelly, who was his Department of Homeland Security
Yeah.
secretary, who then became his chief of staff, who, you know, people are saying, oh, he got fired, he's just saying this because he's mad at Trump. No, he resigned. So he did not
Yeah.
get fired. He's not looking for retribution. He's admitted it's on that Trump was saying that the problem was like, oh no, we need more generals like in Germany. He's like, and then Kelly's like, do you mean like under von Bismarck in World War I, or do you mean under this war? It's like, no, Hitler, of course. You know, because he didn't like that the generals were insubordinate to him. You know, on situations like January 6th, when he wanted them to send in the military, and they said, no, we're not gonna we're not gonna, you know, or sorry, the Black Lives Matter protests. You
Yeah.
know, where you know, he wanted to shut it down with the military, which is something he's promised to do in his reelection. He's promised to militarize
I mean, he can't.
the National Guard. No, he can't. But you know, the
Yeah.
fact that he has that instinct is pretty terrifying.
Yeah, that's what I hate about Trump. It's like he says things that you're like, constitutionally, you can't do that, and no one's gonna do it. Like he was like, well, I can militarize the
National
army
Guard.
and stuff like
Yeah.
the National Guard. Well, really, first of all, he has to ask permission from the state governors to do that. That's for
Yeah.
the National Guards, and
Which
for
is
the
why
actual,
he said, "Oh, I'll do the National Guard, and if necessary, the military." So
yeah, but
he would bypass them by, you know,
yeah,
or
that's
allegedly.
that is so stupid because it's like dude, everyone knows you cannot enact the military on U.S. soil unless you declare a state of emergency.
Yeah,
It's the only way you
which
can
you
do it.
probably would do, of course,
Yeah, good luck with that.
against the enemy from within, or just
Yeah,
radical leftists like Adam Schiff and like Nancy Pelosi. That's like, so you mean every Democrat?
Radical leftists like Liz Cheney.
yeah.
So
Let's
it,
change it,
it's
dude.
pretty
Zach.
it's pretty funny that you are talking about this right now because Kamala's having a town hall currently with I think Anderson Cooper from CNN.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's currently live, and I'm scrolling through Twitter, just like getting clips and bits of it.
Yeah.
And Harris was talking about how John Kelly put out a 911 call to the American people, and we got to take him very seriously because he's unfit and unstable, unfit to serve. And then she was asked a direct question if she thinks that Trump is a fascist, and she said, "Yes, I do," which I think is good because we've seen Tim Walz come out and talk about the threat of like fascism from Trump, and that's. I kind of feel like there's been this sort of like pushback from some in like the upper echelons of the campaign that's like, hey, let's not do that. But now she's doing it, and that's what we're going with. So because it's not incorrect.
If Trump can call us all communists and he calls us fascists too, not knowing what the word means, but they've been doing this the whole time. So obviously, it's not like we need to match their rhetoric with super moderate rhetoric, as if like that's just selling them. Or selling moderate voters, thinking that we are extreme and they are moderate. At least match them at their own game, which is a more accurate description of their policies, anyways. Which is why this is the topic of our discussion today about like what is fascism.
I hope it works because a lot of times the media likes to sort of like whenever Trump calls Democrats like communists and Marxists and stuff like that, they sort of like, oh, that's just Trump being Trump, that's just what the Republicans do. But whenever like Democrats fight back, it's like, oh, how dare they? Like Democrat wrongs and Republican wrongs are like sort of not viewed in the same light. And so I'm just hoping that doesn't happen this time around because Kamala's not wrong. Trump is a fascist, and what he would do under Product 2025 is like get us closer to fascism. And so we got to make sure we stop it.
And we haven't talked about Project 25. Oh, go ahead, Zeph. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, we can talk about that, but I was alluding to the connection. Did you hear about another one of Elon Musk's misinformation campaigns? He created a website called Progress 2028, and they're trying to, and they're texting voters posing as Kamala Harris, saying they're doing stuff like that. Progress 2028. They're like texting to conservative or undecided voters like, oh, we want to trans the kids in the schools. Oh, please help us if you support LGBTQIA. Like they're being so extreme in the texts and trying to make it sound like she's a wokeist or whatever. And I mean, that's pretty sure that is an actual illegal thing, posing as a political figure in text messages. Like, and they're, paid for by Progress 2028, which they're pretending is exactly like Project 2025, but like a democratic version where we trans the kids or whatever and institute Marxism in the schools or whatever. So that's gonna, and Elon's been joking like, oh, they're gonna put me in prison if Kamala Harris wins. Well, they probably weren't before, but now that you're committing probably election interference in a number of different ways, that might actually happen, bud. I mean, you might get some prosecution. I mean, let's be real. The richest man in the world is probably going to be able to afford to get out of something, just like Trump his sentencing has been pushed back and pushed back and pushed back because the privilege of the wealthy,
Yeah. Well,
sorry. My last thing. Did you also see Walz joke and call Elon Musk Trump's running mate? Pretty funny.
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, no, like that's a good line of attack.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like she's not using him as much as she. I heard someone tell me that. She's not using him as much.
The last week, he's been finally out of the closet, or not the term I meant to use, but out of the basement is what they said. Out of the basement, and he's been doing speeches, and they've really been hitting.
Yeah, I think he needs to get back out there, and especially his last 2 weeks, and he's been on Battleground State because he has the.
You talking about Tim Walz?
Tim Walz?
Yes, sir.
He's currently out there right now. What are you talking?
That's what
What
I'm
more do
saying.
you want
Yeah.
from the guy? He doesn't
Well,
sleep.
no, well, when I mean out there, it's one thing to give speeches, but to take those speeches and snap it and make it go viral, because
Yeah, and he's been on like
that's
Jimmy Kimmel and or Stephen Colbert or stuff like that. He's been doing his rounds too, which I think is very effective because he's such a good campaigner. He's such a good rhetorician. So he's
yeah,
the right person to be
but he needs
forefront.
a
Sorry.
if he's been out there, then they're doing a bad job of just playing him out there, in my
Yeah,
opinion,
not
because
good
he's
enough.
not. Because I mean, Obama. Did you guys seen this? And I know you appreciate this stuff. Man, he went viral with he was singing the Eminem rap song.
I did.
With him
Yeah.
introducing. We seen that?
Yeah.
It went
I
like
just
totally viral, and I was like, man, he's such a cool president.
yeah,
Like,
in Michigan after Trump called Detroit, oh, we don't want the country to look like Detroit to people who live in Detroit. And then now
yeah,
Kamala goes to Detroit and has Eminem endorse her. And then
yeah,
and Barack Obama's there and he starts rapping Lose Yourself or
lose
whatever.
yourself
Yeah,
on
like this is
stage.
what we need. We need that energy.
And that's what I'm saying. That's the viral moment that I feel like her campaign's missing. It's like
Yeah.
she does. Sometimes my problem is with some politicians is that they get too wonky on policy and attacking people. People just want to know you're a cool person. That's all they
Yeah.
want to know. Like, why do you think Waltz, who's a principal, is so popular? It's
Yeah.
because he's a cool person. It's like you look at him, you're like, I have an uncle like that.
Yeah.
That I have that crazy uncle who will say something like that. And that's what I feel like she needs to do is to get the coolness back into the campaign. At least these next 2 weeks. Go ahead, Zach. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say there's no T in Walls' name. It's Walls, not Waltz. That's all.
I keep calling him Waltz.
I didn't
Walls.
notice, but people do
Yeah,
that
yeah,
pretty.
that's good call. Good call. You probably say it all the time, so you've noticed it.
Yeah, there's a
Walls.
phone that comes in all the time, and she's like there like every day, and she keeps saying Waltz, and we're like Gloria, like let's Walls, not Waltz.
Whoa, what
Well,
is that?
waltz is a word that's been in the vocabulary of people for a while. Walls is brand new, so that's understandable. But the
Yeah,
same thing with
Wall.
the Kamala, people pronouncing Kamala wrong. Kamala, Mamala. That's how I remember it.
I hear her name said so many different ways. I call her Camilla. I know that's
Yeah,
wrong,
it's
and I've
Kamala,
heard.
Mamala. Just rhyme it with mom. Mamala, Kamala. Then you got it down.
Maybe you're right. I mean, I heard Barack Obama said it correctly. He was like, Kamala. I can't.
That was a good one.
He does that little, but yeah, I was called Camilla. I don't know why. It just
It's like Camilla with like a C. That's a name too, but
it's
it's
like my
just
last name.
easier.
It's like my last
Oh
name.
yeah,
People were like Felipe, Philippe, Felipe. It's like a very like I'm so used to it. It's like it's just
even in your ad, do you remember that ad that we had that
yeah.
we ran and that the lady in the hospital, she's like, vote for Jesse Felipe, and we're like, didn't we?
I
And then I
recall.
think they had to have her redo it like a bunch of different times because she
We
couldn't.
had
She kept.
it did like 20 times, 25 times, and I think they end up like editing it so that like it sounded like it was done correctly, but you
Yeah,
could tell like it's like. But I get it. It's one of those things. We say Barack Obama like it's like wasn't the most foreign thing when it
yeah.
was out in
Barack
somebody's name. Everyone was
Hussein,
like, "What's your
Barack
name?"
Hussein Obama,
Yeah,
Hussein.
yeah. Everyone was like, "That was the thing." Man, every time I think about it, it's like, man, you really defied a lot of odds. And when
No,
you
I'm
won,
really the fact that after George Bush, Barack Hussein Obama was elected
yeah,
president is so impressive.
that is impressive.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys think? So, I see Liz Cheney's out there um, campaigning again. I commend her for having the courage to stick to what she believes in. Do you
Mhm.
think that's going to help swing some Republicans, um, Kamala, away? Or what do you guys think about it?
Well, I at first was,
I
just
mean,
like everyone.
that's progressives. I mean,
Yeah,
how do you feel about the embracement of some of the Republican moderates in her campaign?
it took me a while to develop my opinion on or evolve my opinion on this because of course nobody wants to fucking forefront Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney as if
Yeah,
they're anything in sync policy wise or values wise except for opposing Trump. But if you think about the fact that like whose vote is more important? The overeducated leftist who's either is pretty set already if they're voting for Jill Stein or Kamala Harris or not at all. They're probably pretty set. The voters you're trying to reach are people who are not voters. There's millions of people who are not even registered to vote, who still have time, who have not voted before, who remember Dick Cheney as the vice president, who remember, Republicans, and they perceive Trump as a radical, and Harris is still an unknown. And because she's a black woman, she has to, she's automatically going to be assumed to be more progressive or more far left than any other candidate. So she has to really, really double down on mitigating those externalities. She's not trying to be perceived as a leftist. She wants to be perceived as a big tent candidate. So I understand why she would, hey, look at all these Trump officials, these former Trump officials who've endorsed me, all these blah, 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 people speaking against him. It makes a lot of sense to try to create like a divide, not only between Democrats and Republicans, but between Democrats and Republicans on the same team against the MAGA coalition, which is, I think it's really pointing out Trump's extremism, that somebody as far right as Dick Cheney could endorse somebody like Harris. Now, I obviously wouldn't suggest if David Duke had endorsed Harris that she, you don't embrace every crazy person that endorses you. But the former vice president of the United States, if George Bush had endorsed her, I would also think it'd be a smart idea to forefront that. Plenty of people, I don't know that many people are that concerned about like the policy conflation or anything like that, but maybe I'm wrong. What do you think, Zach?
I don't think I can exactly say exactly what I think on this topic, but I do think that George Bush would have made a lot more sense if he actually, but I don't think he ever would endorse Kamala, just because
I think he might be voting for her.
Who's to say? He probably is. I don't know. I know he doesn't like Trump, but no, just because George Bush was so like, even though he's unpopular amongst people who are like anti-war and like look at his actual record, like especially during the time like in the 2004 like re-election period, he was very popular even among Democrats. So it would make it would make sense for the Kamala campaign to sort of embrace that. But I do think that, and I agree with Tim Walls that like it's sort of it's a good idea to let Liz Cheney and her dad sort of let Republican voters and give permission to more moderate Republican voters to vote against Trump and vote for a return to normalcy. Like we probably shouldn't have to feel like our democracy is on the line in every election. We should just like have a democracy and that be that. As much as I disagree with like just about everything that Liz Cheney stands for policy-wise, we agree on this one thing, which is that our democracy and our classical liberal values should be protected, and our institutions shouldn't just be thrown to the whim of half of the electorate.
The fact that he's positing potentially, just like Elon Musk is pushing this thing, like, oh, we should eliminate 80% of the government bureaucracy, and well, what are you going to do with that power? Obviously, he's going to centralize that power even further. So, like, there's a lot of small, traditionalist, small government conservatives who should look at that and notice, like, yeah, well, eliminating wasteful government is good, but like, what you just want more control in your own hands. That's what Trump is alleging, or that's what he's calling for. And that's apparent in Project 2025, which he's running away for. He knows it's unpopular, but he can't run away from it when his entire cabinet is like a part of writing it. Ben Carson, fucking, I don't remember half the names of the people in it, but people who are still in his circles that he's claiming he won't bring into as a part of his administration when they are literally the people that were in his administration. So, we haven't really talked about Project 2025 and the fascist agenda that Trump is proposing for 2025.
Yeah,
You might know more about it than me, Zach. What do you think? Sorry.
You're talking about
I think about
2025?
Yeah. Do you know some of the stuff that's in it? We could read it.
I can tell you some stuff.
I've read bits and pieces. I mean, I know it has Trump's fingerprints all over it. I mean, it's every single one of his former advisors. You know, his current press secretary was in videos promoting it. You know, he suggested, I don't even know the guy's name, the guy who like is the creator of like the date right stuff, and he's also involved in Project 2025. They're like best buddies, and like they talk all the time. He repeatedly name drops people who have endorsed him that are involved in Project 2025. It's, you know, he's only running away from it and trying to distance himself from it because he knows it's unpopular policy. Just about everything in it is unpopular policy among the American people. But, you know, hopefully people realize that like this actually is what he wants to do, and like a lot of the stuff that's in the policy proposal in the Project 2025 like agenda has been stuff that the Republicans have been trying to do for, you know, decades. The Heritage Foundation was like deeply involved in the Trump presidency, and a lot of the policies that he implemented he got from the Heritage Foundation. So it shouldn't surprise most of the American people that he would do the same thing for this agenda.
Yeah, one of them was. Sorry, I'll let you talk. One of them was abolishing the Department of Education, and you know, one of the things he mentioned in his interview was like, oh, so if a state like California wants to teach that, you know, America was founded on the back of slavery, and that, you know, just talking about literal basic history, would you give them money? He's like, no, I would take away their money. And, you know, if they try to teach that history was, or that the U.S. was founded on slavery, it's like, what do you mean? That's literally what happened. You want to rewrite history. He wants to abolish the Department of Education and rewrite history to, you know, to please white people. Just pretend like our history did not happen. Like, how do you think that minorities will feel about that? The people that were affected. Go ahead.
How would he go about cutting the funding from California if there's no Department of Education? Like, what mechanism would he use to get rid of their funding? They're not getting funding from you because the DOE is abolished. Like,
it's contradictory. Yeah.
And look at that. It took 2 seconds to realize what Trump is and put him in a bottle. I was having this conversation with my mother earlier because she said she was voting for Kamala, excuse me.
Kamala Mamala.
That's going to be a tongue twister. Kamala. And she was just telling me, you know, she just cannot see Trump. You know, what's surprising to me, she told me something, because my mom, I try to gauge her because she's I don't want to age her, but she's like 55-ish. And she comes from a Caribbean background, right? So I like to get her perspective on things, because it really, you know, encapsulates what messaging is working, in my opinion. You know, for her, she came out and she told me, well, you know, I'm supporting Kamala because, you know, I just don't like the idea of January 6th. And that was kind of shocking to me, because I'm thinking, well, that's got to be, at least for me, because, you know, we study politics, we follow politics, we eat and breathe it. She doesn't do that. Yeah. So it was shocking because I thought that cycle was gone. I thought that cycle of January 6th actually being effective on voters was gone. And it kind of shocked me that she said that, because then it's like, maybe that is an issue that I don't think it's ever going to leave voters' minds.
Yeah. You know, I mean, no voter has gotten to vote directly on Trump since it happened. So this is the response to January 6th right now. Like, it's crazy because it feels so long ago. It was 4 years ago. Well, almost 4 years ago. But go ahead.
I guess you could make the argument that like sort of the way his endorsed candidates lost in 2022 and like
Yes.
the way the red wave was sort of like stopped was sort of that referendum. But yeah, you're right. Directly voting for him, this is the first time since then.
Yeah, that's different. And I wonder if that's going to be the one that gets Kamala over the edge. I think that because it was I was just so shocked. I thought she was going to say something like, some of the recent things, like the criminal cases. Yeah, but it was something going all the way back to January 6th.
Yeah.
And I wonder how many people that when it comes down to vote at a voting booth, are they like, you know what? That just didn't sit right with me.
Yeah.
It just didn't. And they're like, we're going the other way.
I mean, there's people like literally like Mike Pence, one of the most conservative people in America, who said he will not be. Actually, I don't know if he said he won't vote, but he said he won't be endorsing Trump. And but I mean, either way, it does represent a certain demographic. People that voted for Trump twice, and the third time they're like, okay, he incited in this insurrection. He's been indicted. He's this. He's a criminal. He was held criminally or financially liable for a civil suit where he was proven.
I think everyone lumps that as political. All those trials.
The MAGA people do.
Yeah, MAGA people do. They view it as political. I don't think he can get around the political thing about January 6th.
Yeah.
I just don't think he has a way to explain that. And he never can explain it.
No.
So I think that is going to be the sleeping. You know how after every election there's exit polls? I think that's going to be a sleeping issue. It's just like people can't get over January 6th, because I think it's one of those things that people are not talking about. And it was surprising that she said it. And I was like, I can't let it still resonate for people after all these years.
Yeah.
That action, I mean, he did lose to Biden, and that action, from the moment he lost to January 6th, people were like, they were disgusted by it.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there's still the conspiracy-minded base that's like, well, they let them in because they wanted to entrap them, or they're secret leftists and they're infiltrating, so they make Trump look bad. And I mean, that obviously doesn't really fare when they were arrested and put in prison, stuff like that. But it does goes to show how much the misinformation is spinning people's minds about regular media for anything to hear. It is showing in the shifting kind of demographics too, that Trump has actually been growing in popularity amongst like Black men. I think Arab Americans, which actually I just learned only constitutes like 25% of them are actually Muslim, of Arab Americans, which I thought was interesting because I thought that was like, oh no, the Muslim population is going against Harris, but no, it's just Arab Americans are actually going higher for Trump because a lot of them are Christian, as it turns out, different forms of Christian. But the thing that shocked me the most that I found out today, we already knew that Harris is leading with white women, which is the first time since I think like Eisenhower that the Democrats have won white women. But also, and it's not winning, but there's been a growing divide there's been a growing shift of Trump's own base, the strongest base, rural, white, uneducated men, and maybe not rural, but uneducated, non-college educated white men Trump's lost them like 7% since 2016 or something like that, maybe even 2020. But the fact that that's like his strongest base, he's been losing. It makes it sound bad that there's the growing minority populations are voting more for Trump, but they constitute a much smaller amount of people. Now, white men, that's millions of people across the swing states that are now switching from Trump to Harris, or at least not voting for Trump. So I think that's very interesting. That's going to affect the swing states.
What do you think? Why do you think he's losing that base?
Well, I think somebody like Ted Cruz is a good reason, in my opinion. What do you think, Zach?
I don't know.
You get the truth.
Like,
I mean, I will say whenever I'm like tabling on campus, a lot more women come up to us than men.
yeah,
But there are some. I mean, a lot of the times we like to stereotype, but there are some men that I'm like, that's Republican, and they'll come to our
Mhm.
table and like, hey, like, where can I sign to commit to vote? I'm like, oh,
yeah,
like big linemen with Borgs or like gallons of water.
yeah.
Um, just coming up and like saying they're going to vote for Kamala. It's honestly, it's a little bit weird. Just the way that the political climate has shifted these
Yeah.
past few
It,
months here.
it is a very weird climate because I just feel like for the first time, I mean, let's be honest, we knew Obama was going to win.
Yeah.
I knew, I didn't know George Bush was going to win. I was still like 15, 16. That was crazy. And technically he did lose, but
In
it was,
2000, yeah.
yeah. And then we were talking about what's the next, and then you had Biden.
Like,
I knew Biden was going to win. Honestly,
yeah,
I
I
just,
was pretty sure.
yeah, people were tired of Trump. This one, I have no idea. To me, if you guys realize that Zach would know, but Kamala, she raised $1 billion in the last 3 quarters. An insane
Mhm.
number. That's last past 3 months. That's an insane
Yeah,
number, but politically, and I just feel like she has the fundraising down. She has the coalition down. I feel like everything is down, but I still feel so like anxious because you
yeah,
don't know Trump voters. They're like the weirdest. You can't poll them, and it's so this empty like feeling like I feel like we have it in the bag, but then I
hmm
feel like excuse me, I feel like we have it in the bag, but then now it's like who is not saying anything, and
yeah.
I think it's just like a fear and anxiety from when it was Hillary.
2016, right? Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's that feeling again, like everything looks good on paper,
yeah.
but what is it? What are we missing? You
Well,
guys,
I think there, like you said, there's a lot of things pointing in the favor. Clearly, Kamala Harris is winning certain margins by a higher percentage of any candidate. Like she's growing all these different ways. But there is a different thing. Like from 2016, there was an underestimated turnout. The Democrats just failed to do what they needed to do all across the board. 2020 was a very unprecedented time. It was in the middle of COVID. People weren't doing active campaigning. There was a lot of mail-in voting, and Trump had told his supporters, don't mail in vote, show up in person. I don't know how many of those people just didn't get to show up and vote at all
yeah,
because he told
the
them and
guy
then they
from this,
missed their
yeah,
so this time they're not making the same mistake. In like 2022, we had projected a red wave, and then it turns out they did not have that really at all. They won marginally, but it was super under expected. And I think the obvious reason is how many of the MAGA Trump supporters are just for Trump. They're stupid. They don't care about the state legislature. They're not going to vote in a midterm. They're just there because I guess I'll show up and I'll vote for Trump. They probably don't even fill out the rest of the ballot. So I think there's
No,
a margin of people that's left out.
yeah, I'm actually going to kind of push back against that a little bit. I mean, there's been
Yeah,
studies that show that Republicans actually vote down ballot a lot more than Democrats do. So I think that
interesting.
everyone who's listening to your program should make sure they vote all the way down their ballot. If there's
Yeah,
like a backside, they should flip it over, vote on the back too. There are
yeah,
several like local races and constitutional amendments and referendums that are on the ballot across the country that are super important. So educate yourself on that. Um, and yeah, no, about like polling and stuff. I haven't looked at a poll in a year. I
yeah,
refuse to look at polls because either you will look at a poll and it looks good and you'll get complacent like we did in
mhm,
2016, or you'll look at a poll and it looks bad and it's like, oh shit, are we fucked? The answer
mhm.
is
yeah,
no, you'll get complacent, and no, we're not fucked. Just keep working hard.
yeah.
All gas, no breaks.
Yeah,
13 days left. So
yeah, it's funny you say that, Zach. I mean, Zach, you've been working like crazy for the campaign, so I mean, you're nails to the wall all the time with the campaign, and you know I just want to, I want to thank you for being there because, like I said earlier, someone like me who gets busy with work and all this other stuff, I can't be out there as much as I used to, and same with Seth. But people like you are the reason why she's going to get elected, and that's kind of like you're like the warrior standing in the front of the line. You
The
know
swing state
that is
warrior.
you are no seriously
Not
because if
the,
she wins
not
it,
the Golden State Warriors, the swing
no, not
state
these
warrior.
people. These people are just going to play basketball for millions of dollars and enjoy their life for their lives. But people like you, Zach, and others in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, North Carolina,
Yeah.
these swing states that are needed are going to be the reason why she pulls this out.
Yeah, I'm
So
glad you didn't mention Michigan because no one cares about Michigan.
Seth cares
However,
about me.
I care
I
about
will
Michigan.
I will say you mentioned before the show that you gave a donation, and we appreciate all the donations that people give. But if people do want to get involved anywhere across the country, they can go to mobilize.us. There's stuff for like everywhere. Every like local race you can think of is on there as well. Door knocking for like the national campaign is on there as well. So like get plugged into your local organizer. There's 13 days left.
Yeah,
Yeah.
guys, and
Still time
it's
to register.
and that's a perfect segue. I would tell you this: get on Mobilize. It's a great app. It connects you guys with precinct captains and all these different and these different organizations that are affiliated with the Harris campaign, and it allows you to get out there and canvas and knock on doors. And if you, like I said, if you don't have the time, because it's just realistic, the time we're in, donate because that helps pay for people like Zach and others to get out there and buy the materials and buy the time
And
that
help
they
pay
need.
for ads that millions of people will see.
Yeah, so just got to get out there. It's 2 weeks. It's go time, you know, and don't be complacent. This is a very serious election. I
Hmm.
mean, what I mean by serious, you're going to either embolden a set of group of people to continue to do what they're doing, which is create division and fascism and inequalities in America, or you're going to be like, well, I'm a progressive, or you're a progressive that laid down to allow them
Yeah.
to do it.
Or voted for
So,
Jill Stein thinking that would prove a message by letting Trump win somehow because
yeah.
that's obviously going to move the country more progressive if we elect Donald Trump, who can get a 7-2 Supreme Court. And he has been, what did they rule that he can do? He's not criminally liable for what he does in office or whatever.
Something about openly
It's a
fracking
green
too.
light. What was that?
Openly fracking, no
Yeah.
environmental protections at all.
Hmm.
So if these progressive messages is what you guys care about, laying down is not the way to go because
Yeah.
I guarantee it, like Charles Barkley says on these TNT shows, that I guarantee he's going to undo everything that Biden did the last
Yeah.
4 years. He's going to go back all the way back to Obama policies again and try to erode them like he did the first time, the first 4
Yeah.
years. So you guys have a responsibility to not only come on Twitter and share what you think. It's
Yeah.
about action too, because
Hmm.
it's great to talk about what you think. I'm obviously I got into politics because I talk, so it's great, but action is just as important. You can't accomplish anything without taking one step foot forward. And I tell you guys this, and I'm just telling you, I'm speaking from the heart because I know when I ran, me and Seth ran the campaign, that was important to us. We weren't successful, but we never looked back like look, we did everything we could do,
Yeah.
and then that's what you want to. I would tell you guys, you want to make sure when you look back that you do everything you could do. If you
Yeah.
did, then you can move on. But if you're just sitting there playing Elon Musk Twitter fingers, um, that's not going to do anything. You
No.
know, helping people like Zach, making phone calls, mobilizing, donating, that's going to move the needle, and that's what we
Getting your
need.
friends and family to register to vote if there's still time in your state. Like the people closest to you are the people you are most able to reach. And there's tons of people that could vote for for Kamala Harris that just are like, hey, they've never voted before, and they maybe need just a little bit of help. Just go to the website, go this, mail in, just go to this polling location, and you can turn in a registration form. There's just little amounts of stuff that you can do, and it can make a difference. Because it's not just Trump and Harris. Everything happens in local elections too. Things affect you directly. I voted on all these ballot initiatives in California that are going to have direct impacts on my lives. Like I've seen, I'm like, oh man, they've got a lot of good stuff in here that I just voted for. And since it's California, I'm like, okay, starting 2025, they're going to raise the minimum wage to $18 if it's probably going to pass. And like that affects me directly. That's $2 increase from where I'm at right now. That's pretty great. And you can vote on that kind of stuff. You can vote on your local election, and they're the most winnable seats because they're the least amount of people voting for them. That's where your vote most matters. You could literally be the one vote that takes a candidate over in like the local elections. So do research on those local candidates too, because especially if you have a ballot at your house, you can look up on your phone before you check the box. If it's between two Democrats, look at those Democrats' websites. Figure out which one's better, because all this stuff has a lot of impact.
It does. All right, guys. So, guys, have any more final words for the audience today?
I said my word.
I would just like to echo with what Seth just said about the sort of talking to your friends and family about getting out and voting. I'd argue that's more important than like going out knocking a door or going out and like making a phone call, because I get a massive amount, too much, I'd say, emails and phone calls, from political campaigns asking me to support them and donate and, get out and vote. I get like, we're bombarded by like TV ads and stuff like that. Most people just like tune that out. They just delete the email, they delete the text message, they text back, stop, but like if their mom, exactly. Or if if their mom or their brother or their sister or their dad, their cousin, their next door neighbor, their like teammate from high school football texted them like, hey, do you have a plan to vote? They'll listen, because it's like, oh, hey, Jimmy from like algebra class in 10th grade texted me. What does he want? And we actually did there was a pilot program in here in Wisconsin and in Arizona, where we, instead of just doing like your typical canvassing and phone banking for the spring elections, what we did was we had people talk to their friends and like use this app where they could talk to their friends, they could like share content. And what we found here in Wisconsin and Arizona was that 66% of the people that like we were able to get in touch with, or our relational sort of organizing team was able to get in touch with, 66% of those people we had not talked to either since before 2016 or at all. So it's very effective talking to your friends, because otherwise, they might not get a knock at their door to like encourage them to go vote. And all these votes really do matter. Last thing on that, like here in Wisconsin, votes or elections are decided by precinct, or 3 of your friends or whatever. There was a election here that favored Democrats because of the unfair math. We just don't have fit.
Zach.
The internet connection went off.
Am I back?
Zach, so Zach, your internet connection really went out bad there. But yeah, Zach, I echo what Zach said.
Am I back?
It's important that
You're back. Zach is back.
I'm back.
You're back, man. 100%.
Okay,
so you're just saying about how small amounts of votes can affect swing states, something like that.
Yeah.
There was a state Senate race where our current Democratic state senator won by 600 votes against someone who was convicted or who alleged to have like raped someone as a police officer back in Minnesota, Like these
Yeah.
please go vote. Like 600 votes could have had that person in power. We don't want that.
Mhm.
There are people who are like openly calling themselves Nazis across the country that are running
Yeah.
under the Republican ticket. We don't want that. Just go vote and get your friends to go vote because it's very important.
It doesn't take that much time. It's kind of
Yeah.
selfish almost not to. You have very little, very, very little time that you need for yourself in order to whatever, compared to the 5 minutes it takes to vote. It's pretty easy to do. It doesn't take long to register. You can make big impacts if you bring along friends too. So
Exactly. All right, guys, got the message. Take down fascism. Go out and vote. And I hope you imagine more. I'll see you next time.